Bilateral symmetrical exercises by design stop rotation. So they are for max propulsion.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. So today is Wednesday. That means tomorrow's Thursday, which means 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Coffee and Coaches conference call. Please join us for that. Great group of people, great questions. Always got new people coming on. So this thing is growing and I'm having a blast doing it. So we're going to keep doing it. So again, please join us for that. This week has been sort of about the foot, and we talked about early and late phases of propulsion, so why not capture middle today? So we're going to talk a little bit about middle propulsion today, a little bit about max. I got two segments for you that we've done in the past. One was actually a conversation with Drew and Dusty Keel, the quarterback docs, and I got to hang out with Drew for a few days over the weekend at the intensive, so we had a great time there. But this was a question in regards to some rotational athletes and how we want to influence the external rotation capabilities, middle propulsive capabilities of these athletes by exercise selection. So I think it'll be a very useful Q&A for you. And then we slide into a max propulsion question that we've answered in the past. Again, that goes into the details of that. So again, really good Q&As for you for this week. And if you would like to participate in a 15-minute consultation, please go to askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com. Put 15-minute consultation in the subject line, and we will arrange that at our mutual convenience. If you have any other questions, go to the same email, askbillhartman@gmail.com, and I will try to answer those for you as well. All right, everybody have a great Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., Coffee and Coaches conference call.
If I'm teaching a young quarterback, though, because one thing that I love about what you teach too is this idea of compression on one side and expansion on the other side through unilateral work.
Right.
So if I was starting with a younger quarterback and I'm teaching him just the basic skills, and he's a novice in the weight room. So would I want to start, and it's all individual dependent, but would I want to start in that unilateral motion to have the expansion and compression to keep the ER fields that I want to keep throughout a period of time versus starting them on these barbell lifts like a bench press, squat, deadlift, etc.
Well, I'm
trying to conserve that ER field as long as I can while I build the IR field, right?
Correct. I mean, if that's the representation, if that's the key performance indicator that we're going to monitor, so we're going to say, I need to maximize the external rotation, then anything that you do that's bilateral symmetrical has the lesser opportunity to create ER because it's going to be compressive on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I work on split orientations, so staggered stances, split orientations, that actually allows rotation to occur. Bilateral symmetrical exercises by design stop rotation. So they are for max propulsion. So when we go back to our propulsive phases, those exercises are designed to increase the force output at max propulsion. Mm-hmm. The other exercises that we do are to maintain the external rotation field that allows us to turn, because that's why you do split stance activities in the first place, is because they actually allow turning to take place. So all your chops and your lifting and all those exercises that you do with the split orientation are designed to preserve external rotation.
So a compressed athlete that we know is lacking some rotation in areas where we want rotation, would he ever perform an exercise with his foot flat? Would we want him to do that if we knew he was compressed?
Sure.
Okay. So
why not?
Would that be interference? So, because in my mind, that's mid-propulsion.
Okay, but in the split stance representation, look where the tibia is going to fall. So the tibia is going to fall behind, or it's going to fall in front, and so now I'm playing with turns, right? What you might want to reorganize your little question is that, do I want their feet symmetrical?
So Slasher says, assuming mid-propulsion falls in this propulsion phase, would mid be an exhalation bias? And I would say absolutely it is. So as we move through the phase of propulsion, we're going to be landing in an ER and inhalation strategy. We have to move through this middle phase of propulsion where we're going to increase that IR gradient, exhalation bias gradient, and then as we leave and we go into this late propulsive phase, we're going to externally rotate and we're going to move towards that inhalation bias again. Now, Slasher continues, he said, I would think that late propulsion would be a max propulsion stage of gait, and then that would be biased towards an exhalation moment, but based on the way that the propulsion is presented, it's an ER orientation. Is this correct? Or is it externally rotating from a state of internal rotating that gives me my late propulsion? Okay, so here's what we got to understand first and foremost, and I think this is the point of your confusion, Slasher, is that the implication that the late propulsion is max propulsion, and that is not true. So what we want to do is we want to look at where maximum force is being produced. And so what we'll find is that the maximum propulsion is going to occur as the calcaneus breaks from the ground. So if I have my foot, my representation of the foot, so I land in early, I've got a high arch, I'm ER'd, I got a plantar flexed first ray, and as I move the tibia over the foot through this middle phase, the belief is that is going to be the late stage of propulsion. Now, it's late in regards to how we designate the segmentation of propulsion, but it's not the highest force. The highest force actually comes right as I break the calcaneus from the ground, because this is the point where, from a traditional standpoint, maximum pronation actually occurs. So here's what we want to do. We want to think about this from an evolutionary standpoint, okay? So we were swimmers before we were walkers, and so our bias is towards inhalation to float, okay? And external rotation, because we didn't have to produce force against a fixed point, and so we used a lot of external rotation as swimmers. So just watch a frog swim and you'll get the idea. When we come up on land and we have to deal with gravity, this is where we started to learn how to internally rotate and produce force. So the point of maximum internal rotation is actually the point of maximum force production, and this occurs at the very end of this middle propulsive phase where pronation, traditional pronation, is at a maximum. Where else will we see this? Well, we're going to see this in any rotational sport where we have to stop our turn to create some sort of forward momentum into an implement. So if I'm throwing a baseball, if I'm swinging a golf club, if I'm swinging a tennis racket, all of these sports will demonstrate the same element where I will have a maximum propulsion where I actually have to stop motion and I translate that into the implement, and that is the point of max propulsion during those activities. So if we think about a baseball pitcher, it's when the lead leg that's stepping towards home plate hits its point of maximum propulsion as they're landing through the heel, and because they never get towards this end propulsive phase except through follow through, which is actually an external rotation moment, which is actually a re-inhale, if you will, as they're following through. So again, maximum propulsion is not in this late phase of the propulsive continuum, regardless of what activity that we're talking about, whether we're talking about gait or whether we're talking about sport. It's actually at the point of the maximum pronation. That is an IR strategy. That is an exhalation bias.